Hi guys! This review is a week late, but it is happening, and I am proud of the fact that it is happening rather than kicking myself because it is late, because that is the way that school has been lately. There's been a lot of stuff going on. If you saw Michaela and I do our latest After Dark Betwixt the Books review of Katie Roberts' latest release, we're both riding the struggle bus, and it did mean that I had to miss a Monday, but it's okay, I'm here. This book is an arc that I read, but the book is out now. So in that sense, that's better for you, I guess, because if you want to read it, you can go to your local bookstore or your local library and get yourself a coffee like now. So the book in question is called Do Your Worst by Rosie Danan. I'm not exactly sure how you say her last name. I first read one of Rosie's books when she published The Roommate, and there was a follow-up to that called The Intimacy Experiment, I think. I didn't read the second one, but The Roommate was quite popular, and so if the name sounds familiar, that might be why. Do Your Worst is a very different book. I think it is verging on the contemporary, but there is an edge of paranormal here that we'll get into. So it's not like a fully contemporary romance because there are some magical elements. I enjoyed them, but if you don't want any paranormal, witchy, cursey stuff in your romance, this is not going to be the book for you. So Do Your Worst is the story of Riley and Caleb. Riley is one in a long line of women who are curse breakers. So they have the ability to smell curses, essentially, to taste and smell curses when they exist in places. And they have made a family study of figuring out how to break these curses and how to help people. Riley, after, certain things happened with her mom and her curse breaking role, her grandmother really inspired her, but Riley is very, very determined to finally turn this weird family trait into a money-making business. This sends her to a castle in Scotland that has been known for having a curse for about 300 years. And she's brought in actually by the management company who has just bought this decrepit castle and wants to turn it into a tourist destination. And they are so determined to stop having people flee this castle because they need people to stay in it to make money that they have decided to bring in a curse breaker even if they're not sure if she's legit or not. And Riley, of course, is determined that this is a big project for her. It will make or break her career, get her on magazines, and make her a legitimate curse breaker. When Riley gets to the castle, she goes to a pub for her first night there, and while she is there, she meets a very handsome archaeologist by the name of Clark. They really hit it off, they have a fantastic conversation, and they kiss before they leave the pub at the end of the night, although nothing else happens. And Riley leaves her card with Clark, thinking that they will meet up again sometime while they're both in the area. Riley goes to the castle for her first day of work the next day and overhears a conversation between her employer and this gruff voice that sounds vaguely familiar. And this gruff voice is going off about how Riley is a charlatan, curse breakers aren't real, she's a swindler, and she should be fired. And lo and behold, when Riley walks in to defend herself, that gruff voice is Clark, who has looked her up on the internet after their meeting and decided that she is no good. This, of course, sets off a huge feud between the two of them, both having to work on the castle at the same time with different aims, different views, and this is an enemies to lovers if you've ever seen one. What Riley doesn't realize is that Clark has his own reasons for this dig on the site, so he's there to make sure that there are no historical artifacts or historical things that will be damaged in renovations on this castle, so he's kind of there as a historical preservation society situation. And Riley does not realize that he is also coming out from a huge fallout moment in his career, and he sees this work on this castle as his redemption. So he is just as personally invested as Riley is in making this job a, career starter or restarter in Clark's case. Enemies to lovers is a difficult trope because there are some people who take the enemies and come on real strong with that part and then make it really hard for me to even want this pair of people to be in a relationship because they have been so rude to each other. And definitely in the beginning, I was feeling that vibe a little bit from the way that Riley and Clark were treating each other, the way they were talking to each other, the things they were saying. Some of them were just like so incisively true. They were terrible, if that makes sense. So they would say things that you know in your heart of hearts are true, but they're just so painful to hear, and they would say them knowing they were causing harm to the other person. So the book in that sense had quite the rocky start for me because I was like, oh boy, depending on how far this goes, I'm gonna have a really hard time wanting these two to be in a romantic relationship. But I think after the initial like, oh boy, the book does a really good job evening out of being like, these two clearly like each other, there are things happening, and they both make dumb choices about what they think is best for their work or for the castle or for the curse. And there is also a little bit of the curse in the background kind of conspiring against them. So I think it all shakes out and evens out in the end, but if that is something that kind of bothers you in Enemies to Lovers, there will definitely be a hiccup at the start of this book because it comes on a little strong in the beginning. One of the reasons that their relationship is so important is because there are very, very few side characters or other things going on in this book. I've talked a lot in the past about how I often find romance novels to be very interesting when there are like multiple things going on and there are different journeys the characters are going on. This is not the case with this book. It is very, very focused on Riley and Clark and their relationship and the curse. There are very few other characters. There are some fun side characters, but they show up just a tiny bit. And so I think that also was a little bit of a harder sell for me because it just felt like this book was very focused on one thing. Once the book hits its stride though, I found myself laughing and sending some screenshots of some parts to some of my friends. Basically what ends up happening is that Riley comes to the determination that she may have to perform sex magic to break the curse, and of course she needs Clark to help her, but they're not exactly seeing eye to eye, and Clark doesn't believe in curses. And what eventually brings Clark around kind of to her side is that he realizes that she is being very scientific about her curse breaking and not like acting like a charlatan or like just like, you know, throwing her hands around and claiming to have special powers or whatever. She's very scientific about it. And so there's a whole section where it's just them trying to be like very scientific about what is the best sex magic ritual to perform to break the curse. And that doesn't necessarily work. Some other things happen, but that scene and that section alone was really, really funny, and it kind of turned me around on the whole book, and I just kind of like laughed into the end of it. I really did enjoy it. So all in all, I gave this book about 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it. I wish there was a little bit more meat to the story, if you will. Something else going on than just their relationship and some little extra side things or extra personal things going on, which I always really value in a romance novel. And the beginning was kind of rough for me. But like I said, it evened out. It got funny. It was hilarious. It had some good points and parts. And I did in the end not mind the element of paranormal magic. That's not always an easy sell for me, but it was so light and it just kind of worked and it flowed. And of course the setting of a Scottish castle was also pretty awesome. So if you are looking for some lighthearted, escapist romance with a fun twist between a curse breaker and an archaeologist in a Scottish castle, it's a good light book to spend some time with and not have to think too hard about. So again, this book is out now if you are interested because this ARC review is coming out late. So you can check out your local library, your local bookstore, and try it out for yourself. And of course, if you've already read it and you have thoughts you want to share, drop them down below and chat with me. Otherwise, I have homework to do. I have a lot of homework to do. So I'm going to go do that and hopefully be on time for my next ARC review. Thanks, guys. Bye.